The husband had a medical emergency, the car hit a tanker and the saddle tank took the wife's head off.
Oh, that was 33 West. When the new road was put in, from Post Road, they put 33 West, it was just a 2-lane road. And there was an intersection at Wilcox that they eventually closed off when they went to 4-lane.
Yeah, Wilcox went straight across.
Yeah, and it was out that way. In fact, the first fatality I was on was my first automobile accident. It was on that big curve out in the Sutphen's when it was just 2 lanes. The guy had been playing softball that night in Columbus. He was from Milford Center and probably had a few drinks afterwards, and he apparently fell asleep, went left to center and hit a semi. And I never realized how much banking, that road was banked there until I was standing out on the highway. It may not be now, it's 4 lanes, but boy, it was really banked in. Sutphen's wasn't there, of course.
There was another major bank right at the edge of town, where you go off into Old Post Road, where the new, 50 years, goes straight out. There was a big curve that took you around from Bridge Street over to Post Road. And there were a few accidents on that curve.
Oh boy, orders. That's where the bad curve was. Dad talked about a number of them. I'd say, what kind of car was this? I don't know. And I always wondered, it was funny, he never could tell me. I found out quick, you never know what kind of car it is. Unless you're standing around after the fact, you have no idea what kind of vehicle you're dealing with. Unless it's the tanker that you notice, of course, when you pull up. But And a couple of us, John Brown Casual, different one, went with me to Don Scott Field on Friday evenings because Stu Roberts was a surgeon in Columbus and had gone to Vietnam as a reserve, and most of the regular Army doctors, they kind of ignored him. And one of the residents from OSU told me he was over there with him. He says, in one day, the regular Army was asking him how to do things because he was that good at surgery. And he started the old Medicopter. We didn't have any medical Medicopters in the state, and he'd use the National Guard helicopter, and him and 2 or 3 of us would go there on Friday nights, especially summertime. There'd be some accidents and stuff. And when our brother had that accident out west, I called him, told him what happened. I didn't ask him, I just called him, he says, we'll go get her. And they had to bring a pilot down from Akron because Brian Columbus was gone to fly that. And that was the old helicopter.
Never did
before the Hueys. And
never did
understand cracks
how you got that done.
Cracks, I just knew somebody. There's cracks in the floor of that helicopter you could see right through there. And it was like,
oh, and God, was it cold?
It was right around zero,
Was it
ground
cold?
level, so you can imagine how cold it was up there. But I asked the city I was on duty. I asked go, and they gave me, called the supervisor, and he said yes. And then when we came back, there was a squad set that the only place you could land in was the old athletic fields with more hospital down there, hospital parking, I think, down there. And we landed there, and the squad picked her up and took her to Riverside because that's where her doctor was. If it hadn't been for him, I don't think she'd lived. Because when I walked in, they had a 4-bed emergency room, all in one room. And I didn't recognize her because she'd hit her face pretty hard.
They both threw their arms up, and they both had broken arms.
You could just see where hers hit the dash. And she had skull fracture.
It was a
spinal fracture.
A Ford Mustang. I don't know what year we're talking about, but one of the smaller ones. He had a 16-inch block, concrete block, in the trunk for weight. It ended up on the back seat. If anybody been in the back seat, that would have just cleared them right out. But
a lot of it paid me back that day when I called, and he said, let's go get her, because I don't think she would. I finally thought of her mother, and that's how I recognized which bed she was in. And this emergency room doctor tells Robert, he says, well, she was a little uncomfortable this morning when we had her on a bedpan. And I'm thinking she's got a spine fracture, and out on her bedpan. Robert's turned to me, he says, let's get him out of here. He said, I can't say anything. And they had an ambulance meet us out there. We'd called and had an ambulance meet us, so, because they had to land across the road from the hospital.
When we
I got a
went
big
down,
picture of me on that.
she was,
Can I get a copy of that picture?
If I
you
can
don't
find
mind?
it.
Yeah.
I don't know where all my stuff's at since they moved me.
Okay.
I had it on the wall before.
she was somewhat vain. So when we went into the hospital to see her, she wanted her purse so she could powder her face and everything, and we couldn't find her purse in the. So they had hauled the car down to a little place south of Eaton.
Eaton, yeah.
And we drove over there, and it was so damn cold driving into that wind going west. When we got down there, we saw the car, we took pictures of it, and the guy hands us the purse.
Can you believe that?
He had kept the purse from the car, and
I looked at the car, and I don't know how either one of them survived.
it,
They did have
they-
seatbelts on, and
you
they
know,
weren't required yet to.
a big steak truck.
Steak
Not-
body, you know.
Not a steak body,
Egg-
not real big, but it was an egg truck is what they were hauling. And the guy lost control on the ice and slid in front of him. Just, well, a couple hundred yards south of the exit there. They were going down to,
Miami.
yeah. And,
Son was down there. Oxford. He lived in Oxford. Graduated from down there.
yeah, they both survived, and
It's pretty good. You make one phone call, and he says, we'll go get her. And they say we didn't have any medical ambulance. We just
So-
did it, just volunteered. We volunteered to do it.
I want to back you up just a second about the basically start of medical helicopters. You just kind of threw that out there, and that seems like a big deal to me. And how did that come to be? And walk me back through
Kind
that.
of from that. I was teaching at Columbus State when they started them, because the one girl that was the lab tech for EMS, she was one of the first ones to go to work on the one that ran out of Port Columbus at that time. It was SkyMed, and there was two
Lifeline.
different ones, and finally the hospitals decided to go jointly, which they should have done to start with. It's like when I was still at Muirfield, Peoria, Illinois, who Stu Roberts was from, and he had gone out there. And there are three hospitals that bought the ambulance service out and was going to form a medic. They wanted somebody to help teach and to run it. So I was offered that job. And I saw tears coming out of my wife's eyes when she looked at the houses, because a house there would be like buying half of ones on Monterey from what we had with the money we would get out of ours. Slabs and everything. She had tears running down her eyes. And I said, well, a long distance phone call is going to cost me more than I'll make. I was actually going to double my salary if I had taken it.
Huh. What
Didn't do it. Only job I ever turned down, I think.
one thing I haven't asked you about, and I believe it happened during your tenure. We have a few helicopter and airplane crashes
Yeah.
in our area.
I know one on Avery Road was when I was there.
Describe that to me, because I know pictures exist, so I'd like
It was
to.
one of the guards' helicopters, and it wasn't damaged too bad, but it was out in the field. Of course, everybody, and their cousin had to come by to see it, and the Dublin police chief then, I had known when he was in Hilliard, and then one of the Vances came with him from Hilliard.
Mayor.
And, yeah, Bob Mayer was the chief, but Vance was out there, and some guy gawking almost hit him. A flashlight bounced off his rear window. I don't know where it came from. He never forgot that. Remember him racing out there at the cemetery that day?
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, this has been an absolute blast, and I enjoyed it so much. I would love to invite you guys back again sometime.
Yeah, we'll do it.
This would be
If
fun.
I'll start trying to make little notes and think of things. It's amazing how you can't think of anything till something else brings it out.
Yeah.
just everything runs together after.
I got to go back through some of our old photos. I've got some that tie into the fire department a little bit. Hopefully I can find them and make copies of them for you.
I would love photos of just of the firehouse, of you guys playing if it's in the background, of life as kids during that time. I don't have any video at all.
I don't think we had a camera. Grandpa had one of those box cameras.
I know that I've got a picture of our dad driving the Rio, I think in a parade,
Or something,
going
holiday.
down Bridge Street.
I thought it was right in front of 75 South High. That's one I was thinking.
Well, I got that, and
That's
he's
another
standing
one.
on the back
Yeah,
of the
that's right.
Ford.
Yep.
Standing on the back of the
You know, the
Ford.
Ford was a 40 chassis.
Yeah. And we bought it in 41.
Yeah.
I have the original paperwork for that.
Oh, wow.
You want to see it?
Sure.
I haven't even scratched the surface of giving you guys the stuff I got just because of time, but
Right.
we've gotten
I
through
just am amazed that this stuff exists.
Yeah, that's still around. How
I
the
would
heck you
hope
found
that,
it, I think it's wonderful.
I would hope that Nancy would give you some things. Nancy's not very long for this world, really.
Do they have
But
any kids?
yes, they've got 2 daughters.
Okay.
One of them's in town, one of them's in
I
Cincinnati.
hate to say it, but
believe.
that's a question I always have to ask because that usually determines who wants dibs on it, if you will. You know, if some people don't care at all, some people are.
What I'm particularly thinking of are the pictures that Harold took, and maybe she